Hello everyone and welcome to my first YouTube video recorded in my new flat. So if the sound is a bit different of my voice, that might be the echo of the new room. And yeah, with that, let's go in. If you want to see the new background that I have in my room, check out the Twitch down below. The video we're doing today is an overview over my favorite division currently and what I think is so strong about it, and how I built it and why I did the decisions I did in it. The division we are looking at is the 7th Panzer division of the NVR. Mine is named Genossen Greifen an. But yeah, let's have a look into it. And the first step is not that special, not that great in this deck. You don't have super high availability on your CVs, but you have 100 point CVs. This is at least pretty okay. Unlike in 39th, you don't have to go above 100 to get your normal leaders or your normal CVs, so you can buy a CV quite quickly, put it into somewhere and fit in. The slot costs quite expensive, but that's okay. Your supply options are a bit mediocre, both of them not amazing, as this one only brings 500 supplies for 20 points, which is quite pricey. This one brings quite a bit of supplies, but you only get 3 cards, or 3 in one card, and so if you lose one of these, it's really dangerous to you running out of supply. That's why I take the one where I can get 10, because losing one of these not too key, especially as most of them get killed once they're already empty, whilst these often get killed when they're like half empty or so, which is a much bigger loss, even though they're a bit more, if you fully use them, they're quite a bit more cost efficient than the MTLB ammunition. But let's come to the first tab where this division is really good. And this is the infantry tab, because everything here comes with one level of free veterancy. What that means is that you get the availability that other decks get on the trained experience level, on your veteran experience level, and your infantry units usually can go one level up without losing too much availability, and in this case this means going from veteran to elite, and that means you can bring quite a lot of elite infantry while still having good numbers. We're still close to the 50 mark. Everything above 40, I would say, is a good infantry tab, so this is still a pretty mighty fine infantry tab. The only reason why I don't upvet the Modschützen and the Flame Pioneer over here is, first of all, for flamethrowers doesn't matter too much because they stun anyways, and second of all, this is still a ranked deck, and ranked currently doesn't have a time limit. As soon as ranked gets a time limit, I most likely will upvet these two as well, but till then I will keep it as this, because I want to be able to grind somewhat. And yeah, this is the reason why I haven't upweighted Panzerjägers, Pioneer Flames and Modschützen PTR yet. With that, I would go down to the 40 mark, or like 41 mark, so I would lose 7 infantry squads. Yeah, I'd rather have those 7 infantry squads in case we go over the 40-minute mark currently. But as I said, time limit should come, and then I most likely will adapt in that regard. Let's move on to the artillery tab, and what I did there. The only reason artillery currently in 1v1 is not amazing, but as these 2 slots are 1-cost slots, I still think they're worthwhile filling, as there's currently no card that costs 2 in my deck that I could buy by getting rid of them. So, like all the other tabs are 3-cost tabs, so I might as well fill them. And fill them with the Akazia and the Mehrfach Raketenwerfer, RM70, which are decent artillery pieces that at least can deal some damage. The key thing with artillery is that artillery has this aim circle, and unlike in previous Legion titles, it's not fully randomized. The hits are still somewhat randomized, but they have a pattern from going from left to right. So what you want to do often is not aiming with the dead center of that aim circle onto the enemy, but somewhat slightly edge it so that the target is in the left half of that circle, so that the first half of your salvo will land on closer to the target. At that point, artillery becomes a bit more efficient, and then you can use them in some games. So yeah, artillery not worthwhile stacking your deck with too much, but the 1-cost slots I would still fill, and I feel like this setup is the best currently for that. In the tank tab, you want to use a lot of slots, and you want to use most of the T-55s, especially the leader ones that are currently only 70 points. These should go up. The T-55s are really not there to fight other tanks per se. They can do that from time to time, if the enemy shows side armor or so on, but in frontal engagements these guys are pretty cost inefficient against 90% of the other tanks. Even though you have a lot of numbers, just driving up there trying to kill it most of the time doesn't work out too well. You will still lose 4, 2 or 5 and then maybe get a kill, but maybe you don't get it and then it's super cost inefficient against the Leopard or stuff, or even M1 Abrams. So you want to use these for cleaning up infantry units from afar. You want to use these for dealing with light armored vehicles, and you want to use these as your scouting force for your stronger taps, for your infantry, for your helicopters, and especially for your air tap. And that's how you want to use the T-55s. T-72s is a different business. 18 penetration is quite good. Mixing them with T-55s is a worthwhile investment as well, as the T-72s can stay behind them. T-55s can maybe find out where the enemy has 80 GMs and so on, and so you don't lose your more valuable T-72s, as they are still pretty cheap, whilst bringing quite a bit of punch. They still have horrible armor, so that's why having a meat shield of T-55s is not a bad idea. But they come with a quite capable gun that can go 18mm. This 125mm gun is quite good. And yeah, you have a good mix of them. You don't have too many cards of each version, but you don't really need them. Another good trick with the Panzer, by the way, is it doesn't deal too much damage, but it can fire indirectly. It means it doesn't need line of sight, and it doesn't need a direct like line of sight angle to fire its gun. It can fire over buildings, it can fire over forests, into forests, without having to see the enemy directly. So if you know where an enemy is, you can use that, or even if one of the units in front of it is engaging, then it will automatically use its flamethrower to shoot at it. So it's really good behind infantry formations, it's really good on the edges of towns to fire into the town, onto buildings where the enemy is in. As I said, it doesn't deal the most damage, but it's quite an okay unit for 50 points. It's one of these is cheaper than a full squad of the Pioneers, the Flame Pioneers, so this is a worthwhile consideration. Yeah, especially as their flamethrower has more range than one of the Pioneers. Then we come to the Recon tab, which is one of my favorite Recon tabs in the game. Is the Spezialflares are really cost efficient, one of the strongest fighting force recons there is. Maybe only beaten by Spetsnaz, maybe even better than Spetsnaz, depends. The AKSU 74 gives them really good close range fire capabilities, but especially the RPK-2 is the important factor here, because they are the only recon squad with 2 LMGs and also being a tanky one. So they win most 1v1s against enemy recon squads. With the forward deployment, that is really key in this division, as it allows you to win the skirmish fights at the beginning of the game. And then they also come with an RPG-22, which is not super amazing as an anti-tank rocket launcher, but 15 penetration at least is capable of dealing with some light tanks, and especially with a lot of IFVs and one-shotting transports and so on. The Aufklärer is for either being your cheap recon, or for being behind the enemy line actions and side-shotting enemy tanks, or one-shotting enemy IFVs with the RPG-18. As they have 6 rounds, they also have a bit more ammo than Panzerfaust units on the other side. So these Aufklärers pretty decent. Not quite Rajvetka level, but still somewhat close. And this is a nice combination. You can also bring the Spezialaufklärers in Mi-8s. I found out lately though that the Mi-8 is a bit too slow now. They nerfed the speed a bit, so it's not amazing anymore to get into a good position at the beginning of the game, because it takes some time to start, it takes some time to land, so it's not that much faster anymore than trucks on most positions, but on some positions it still has the advantage, so that's why I bring one of the Spezialaufklärers in Mi-8s and the other one now in trucks, instead of only bringing them in Mi-8s, because affording the 110 extra points 8 times is not something you do too often. And then we come to one of the strongest tabs of the division, in which I have a setup that most people don't have, because most of the people just take both cards of the Shilka, because the Shilka up currently is a really big, good beast, but I have a setup of coops as well, because I feel like the long-range ATEs, AAs, the long-range AA missiles can be helpful quite often, especially against better players who know how to keep their distance from a Shilka. And then the coops sometimes land those extra hit that with their 9 damage means the enemy plane is as good as dead. And then maybe your Shulka still gets 1 or 2 shots off and then the enemy plane goes down. Because yeah, flying fully over Shulkas is not something the better players do. Coops are a weapon of luck and a weapon of attrition because they have shitty accuracy. But you only need 1 or 2 hits to kill a plane. Like 1 hit plus a bit of extra damage from your AA or your Shulkas. Your air superiority planes or your Shulkas. And then you will get the enemy killed with that. The Strela currently not worth it, as it is still on 3 damage. If that goes up to 4 damage, they might become a consideration. Currently they just need 4 hits to kill a plane or a helicopter, so that's not worthwhile. But yeah, Coop plus Shulka is my startup. You really have to learn how to micro against Seat planes with these two. And if you don't want to do that, or if you don't feel like you have the time for it, use the Strela. Strela I bring up upweighted because it is a good availability curve here, going from 6 to 4. And the accuracy goes up by a significant margin, from 12 to plus 25. 75% accuracy on these, really good. Really good against helicopters with the 5 damage, really good against planes, 2 hits, everything. So that is quite helpful there with the Strela. And I like also the versatility of these tools. Well, Coop I think is a bit undervalued since they changed how ECM works. Since ECM is not as effective anymore, I feel like the Coop has become a bit better, as it is a somewhat affordable option as well for the 90 points. Just always bring 2 Coops in and instantaneously bring an ammunition that costs you 200 points. And with the 200 points you have enough rockets or enough missiles to shoot. This is really the biggest problem of the Coop, the only 3 missiles. If you don't bring a supply truck from the get-go, they will run out of missiles quite quickly. Then we come to the helicopters. Helicopters, the Mi-24P is what I go for. Currently, there's also the Mi-24D, but if you compare these, there's really no reason currently to bring the D version. The P has the better ATGMs, and the better autocannon, and the better rockets. Like, I guess the D has a couple more of its rockets, but the 80mm are way superior to the 57, and as it is not even double the ammunition there, it's really not worthwhile. So the P really better in every way, and it costs the exact same currently. So always bring the P Mi-24. You only have 2 of them, but the slots are somewhat affordable. And these helicopters are pretty capable. So use them wisely, and you should be able to deal with a lot of enemies as well. And then we come to the reason why I would say this is currently the strongest deck, the air tap. The air tap is insanely cost efficient. Starting with its first plane, the Mi-21 BIS HE bomber. 60 points for 4 bombs is really, really affordable. You can buy 4 of them. You can buy the full card in 1 minute. You can buy the full card in 1 minute. And then still bring in maybe a supply truck or so. Only goes up to 240 points. And the enemy will get overwhelmed by them. Like the reason why you want to have the MiG-21 is to help out overwhelm the enemy air defenses. Help out annoying the enemy with these bombs. These bombs are deadly, but not super deadly. That's why it is a cheap bomber, but it is, even for a shitty bomber, it's still too cheap. Especially as it drops from up high, so it doesn't stay too long in enemy AA range. Doesn't get too close there. So it should go maybe up to 85 points or so, would be my recommendation to Eugen. But as long as it stays at 60, guys, use it. It's absolutely insane. Another reason why this deck is so good is it has 4 cluster bombers and 4 Seat planes in a world where everyone else only has 2 of each of these. Only 1 card of 2 cluster bombers, or only 1 card of 2 Seat planes nowadays. So you can really overwhelm the enemy with clusters as well, or playing out like that 1 more Seat plane that the enemy didn't think about, and that then starts to hit their AA that they had turned off for the previous ones, or something like that. And then they also have a cheap air superiority fighter that has some good matchups. It has also a couple of horrible matchups, like against the MiG-31 and against the F-15. You don't want to bring this around. It just won't kill any of them because it has low accuracy on its missiles. The enemy outranges it. The enemy outturns it. So don't bring it out against MiG-31. Or at least don't expect it to kill anything there. Maybe as cannon fodder, it is worthwhile. But against cheaper enemy planes, against F-16s, against the Starfighter, or against MiG-23s, it is quite capable for its price. It's quite cost efficient there. So consider bringing these around as well. Some other options in this deck are maybe the 2 other HE bombers. But I would say the 60.1 is just so cost efficient, as you get 2 and some like nearly 3 for the price of the Su-22M. So if you want to have more bombs as you get the same amount of units for the card, maybe bring out the Su-22M. But yeah, that's my deck, and these are the strengths and weaknesses of this deck. And I would say the cost efficiency of its infantry through the Privet, the cost efficiency of the air tab, and the cost efficiency of the Shilka combined with the Coup are the main reasons why this deck in my eyes currently is the best deck out there. Tank tab is what a lot of people look at and see those cheap tanks, but these cheap tanks really are kind of trash. That's why you want to be careful of them. Even on highest veterancy, you only go up to 45% accuracy on the lowest range of any main battle tanks, so really be careful around with these. But they help you out as well to cover the front line in this deck of super cost efficiency. Yeah, if you have any questions and if you have any suggestions about my deck, feel free to leave them down below. You will also find the deck link to this deck down below if you want to test it out yourself. And yeah, let me know what you think about this. And I hope to see you all next time.